There we go.
Thank you, Beth. We will call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. You're all set with your attendance, Cindy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Approval of agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Bennington County approved the agenda.
And a second. Thank you, Louis. Any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. Secretary's report was in your packet. I will entertain a motion to approve the secretary's report as produced.
Grand Isle will make a motion.
And a second.
Moyle will second.
Thank you, Dustin. Any additions, corrections to the secretary's report? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Thank you. Patty, treasurer's report, please.
Okay, so data's through the month of May, which is 8 months, or 67% of the budget. You have the first few charts, which are the results of each year at this time, through May. Okay, so membership, this was 6,200 in membership income for May, and we are about 83% of budget expectations for membership. And that includes the $10 increase. And that 6,200 was from paid volunteer TMAs. If you take out the $10, we're about 77% if you could year over year comparison, which is about 10% as to where we were last year at this time. For income overall, there was about 34,000 in income for May, and that includes again the $10 increase. And that income represented about 8,400 media sales and 15,000 in contracted services, which was the SSTP. We're at 81% of budget expectations with the $10 increase compared to last year at 87% this time. If you take the $10 out to do a true year over year, we're at 76%, about 10% less than we were last time, last year this time. Expenses. We had about 161K in expenses. 81K of that was in trails, which 2,000 was in signage and 76K in grooming. And we had 53K in salaries and benefits. Again, we're at 67% of our fiscal year, and the expense budget's about 59% has been utilized. And just a reminder, only 59% of the grooming was utilized as well. General fund budget's about 63%, and trails fund budget is at 57%, just to give you an idea between the two. I did break down a few expense line item highlights there for you, so you can see those. A couple items that were over budget on, just to keep in mind. There are other things that were below budget on as well. And grooming again is 59%, so it's about 578K remaining in that grooming line item. And the GPS, I know I bring that up every month as well. We only use 73% of that budget, so we have about 17K balance in there. Then I get into the trails encumbered account. You can see the activity for the month of May was 2981 on regular projects. The season so far on regular projects was about 331K, and we have a budget of 554K for that. And for flood relief projects for activity for the month of May was about 13,000. So far, we've spent in flood relief 412K. And we have a balance about 337K in there. So we've used about 55% of that 750. The total projects, if you combine the regular season with the flood, We've paid a little over $743,000 in projects for trails. And that's what I have, Jeff. And everybody should have that in email that I sent out yesterday.
Thank you, Patty.
Welcome.
I will entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Windsor County make a motion to accept the treasury report as presented.
Thank you, Doug. And a second.
Grand Isle will second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions for Patty on the treasurer's report? I see no hands. Hear no voices. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay, please. Thank you.
You.
Let's see, nothing tabled, old business, Waterbury Bridge. Jeff, you want to give us a quick update on that?
Yes, well, all went well. Thank you to the Waterbury Club and Stowe Rescue. It really went really well. I was really impressed with the day. I got there a little late, but they did a great job as far as cleaning up in the trails in that area. And I know there's a big work party that's going to be cleaning up the abutments out there if it's not already done. I thought I saw some emails today flying around about it. It really looks good. Mark and I were on site and along with the Waterbury Club and looked over quite a bit. I actually looked over, it's I surprisingly in my mind, the bridge doesn't look as bad as I had it in my head that it would be. It really looked good. They did some great cutting around it, and I think there's some hope there. But Cindy has, I know, and she can speak for herself, she has reached out to an engineering firm, and we are waiting on some prices back for them to get involved and go look at it. And I think our next move would be able to approach the board with the pricing when the quote comes in to see if we can get them involved and have them give it a solid look at it for an answer on what to do next.
Jeff is correct. I got a report or an email back from them last week that they're still putting a proposal together.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Jeff was there too, Jeff Fay. And boy, are we glad those guys were strapped down onto that bridge once that tree guy went for.
I saw the video of the actual cutting. It was pretty neat. I must have missed you, Jeff. We must have switched shifts or something on that. So
Yeah, I bailed out pretty early. I had to be up in Burlington for a tournament, so I left about 10 minutes after they got done the last cut, and I was headed. So
After the bridge stopped going back and
you know,
yeah, the bridge had actually stopped moving before I left. But yes, it was definitely impressive. And glad to see that taken care of. Okay. New business. Bylaw amendment. Patty.
Okay, so I just put some notes together so I don't go astray, so it'll be pretty quick. So the volunteer officer position of treasurer is voted on by the membership. In this position, I see the treasurer acts on behalf of the board and the membership in regards to finances. I am proposing to officially enhance the current process to include the elected officer of treasurer in the budget process. Proving this change will result in the collaboration of an employee of the association and an elected officer volunteer. Very few of us volunteers will be in these positions in the next 5 to 10 years. Same could be true for any employees, right? The change I am proposing ensures a check and balance from the positions of ED and treasurer before presenting to the board. It's not the people who are currently in this role that we should be thinking about, but for those unknown to us now who will hold these positions in the future. Your vote of yes represents this board taking the responsibility to ensure collaboration and inclusion for the future of this association. The budgets can be very overwhelming to people, and many of you may not have the time to do the deep dives that I do in my role as treasurer. the treasurer position is inherently assumed by the majority to have an active role in the creation of the budget. The reason we are discussing this tonight, I was told that my role and responsibilities in the current bylaws does not specifically say that I have involvement in the creation of the budget, and therefore cannot provide my input. In my opinion, this is just Patty's opinion, okay? I think it's a sad state of affairs that we have to spell out in our bylaws the ability for any volunteer of this association, that it's okay for them to be able to provide input on any topic in any stage of the process. I strongly believe that the vast membership at large would agree that the treasurer should have an active role in the creation of the budget, and they would be shocked to hear that as their elected treasurer, I was silenced from providing that this year. I did go back through the annual meeting minutes, and Tom Boltris presented the budget at the annual meeting according to the minutes for many years. I also know for a fact that when he stepped down, I was going to say, I can speculate that once Tom stepped down and Sonia took over, that Cindy helped her like she does, and then she became lead in the budget creation. Former directors on this board, and probably some of you remember Tom reviewing the proposed budget in detail. I know some of you have said it was painful that when he went through it, but he did do it at these board meetings with all of you at this board meeting every single year. I would like to formally request a change to add the following language to the duties of treasurer in the current Vast bylaws. I sent this to you, the exact language. The treasurer, as chair of the fiscal committee, shall work in collaboration with the Vast executive director on the financial planning in the form of a proposed budget to be presented to the Vast board of directors. I'm not looking to remove anyone from the process. I am asking for collaboration between a Vast employee and a Vast elected volunteer. I ask from the board tonight, I ask that you put your personal opinions aside, not think about the people involved, that you consider what the membership in your counties would say to the treasurer, either having or not having input or influence on the creation of a proposed budget. Vote yes if you believe your membership expects the treasurer to have a role. Vote no if you believe your membership doesn't think the treasurer should have a role. I'm looking for somebody to make the motion on the language I presented to you and I just read. An overall vote from the board tonight to approve this bylaw enhancement so it can be presented to the association at the annual meeting for them to vote on it. And that's what I have, Jeff.
Patty. Carol?
Patty, I'd like to ask when you talk about creation, because I actually work for an association. Our normal way of doing things is the staff develops the budget. The executive director reviews it. We then present it to our treasurer, president, and president-elect. They ask us questions. We do a deep dive for any questions they have. And then once it's agreed upon, the treasurer then presents it to our board of governors for approval. I also worked with the Connecticut Chiropractic Association for 11 years. We did it that way. And to go one step further, I actually contacted Bob Paolini, who's the executive director of the Vermont Bar Association. And I wanted to get an understanding on how Vermont Bar Association handled their budget. And they pretty much did it the same way. The executive director and his staff developed the budget. They present it to the incoming presidents and the treasurer. And at that point, once it's agreed upon, it's presented to their house for approval. So I guess my question to you is, you're bringing this to that you want to be part of the developing of it, which is a little outside the norm of associations. So I want to understand.
Okay, that's perfect. That is a great question, Carol. So I do believe the staff and the ED do work on the first blush of the budget. No question about it. I mean, I don't know the projects that are going on in that office or what are planned in the upcoming year for projects. Absolutely. But number two, you say when then they present it to the president and the treasurer for a deeper dive. That's where I was denied a voice. So the first part, yes, Cindy works with her folks and gets a lot of great data from them. And I wouldn't be able to provide that. That has to come from the staff and the ED. The second part is on that finance committee. When we do talk and the president and the treasurer are on that, I was denied input. And so then this would be, the third session would be today, and we never got past 2 to come to 3. So I think the way you just described is exactly how it should work. And exactly what I'm saying. When it gets to that point, we should be working in collaboration. I should be able to ask questions. I should be able to say, you know, what about this, and things like that. I've done it in the past. I went through my notes. You know, I know the last 2 years, Sheila was not part of the 2 meetings that Cindy and I had. One being in the parking lot at Chester landowner event. We sat in the truck. I just had knee surgery, I think a month earlier. So we were together in the truck. We spent about, well, I'm gonna say at least 45 minutes to an hour in there going through things. And last year I have on my notes that, for Cindy to go back and get some validation from Sheila on a few items. So I have the budget, I have all my notes on it. So I'm just saying what you just described, Carol, is exactly the way I think it should work.
But isn't that what our bylaws already state?
No, I was denied number 2. I was denied what you said in your process.
I had Stan before you, Cindy.
That's fine. Just,
Go
I
ahead,
just
Sam.
can't find my raise hand thing, so that's why I'm
I see
raising
it.
my hand.
I was just going to add that I've been involved with a very large trade association for several years, which includes some Fortune 500 companies. And the process there, the treasurer is part of the basic construction of the budget for the following year. They work with the executive director. And in that association, actually, the president is also involved in that the start of the budget for the following year, because they are aware and involved with projects that are, you know, to be done in the future. The ED does not necessarily have the details about what's planned to be done the following year. So they bring that to that initial budget meeting and they work together forming that budget. So I just think that I think it can be structured any way the association feels comfortable with. But in this case, the treasurer is involved at the very ground roots, the grassroots level of building the budget.
Thanks, Stan. Cindy, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So my working with Patty in the past has been to review the budget that I have proposed and answer questions. Last year, the treasurer came to the retreat with a budget that had been put together by Windsor County. This year, during the financial meeting that she ended early, I went through the general fund and was moving on to the trails fund, and it wasn't questions. She actually had done her own budget and was going to present line items. And that's what she started to talk about. It wasn't questions about the budget. I also would like to say that I went back and looked at the oldest bylaws I could find from 1998. And the bylaws say the same thing that they say now, except at that point, the officers had a vote. It's also in policy that the executive director puts together the budget. And just as a reminder, this board of directors, there's 2 things, and then I'll stop talking. This board of directors gets the budget for a month to review and ask questions and make suggestions. So it's not just me working on a budget that then goes to the board just to get passed. So it is a collaborative responsibility of everyone on the board to review the budget and come back with questions, to call and meet with me if they'd like to do that. And the other thing is that by putting a treasurer in this position who is an elected official and represents a county and a club that receives funding from this organization, can also skew, not saying Patty, because she said it's not necessarily about her and not necessarily about me, but you know, the majority of the funds that pass through this organization go to counties and clubs. And I think that's a conflict of interest.
I would say every one of us represent a county or a club on this call. And I don't think at the budget level, we break down what clubs are getting what or what counties are getting what. We just do line items. So I don't think that I think we'd all have to walk away if that was the case for a conflict of interest, because we all represent a county
No,
rec club.
I'm sorry. What I meant is that the board of directors has a vote. The officers do not. So the board of directors make a decision based on the majority of them. And so if any of them have concerns, they can bring them up. But it's not one county that's making the decision on whether something's in the budget or something gets passed. And, you know, I mean, I can go back and talk about Tom Baltras, by the way, never did put the budget together. I've done the budget ever since I've been here. Bryant did the budget before me and Alexis did it before me. They only reported out at the annual meetings as treasurer. And Pat, you've been here longer than anyone, so I don't know that if I'm speaking out of turn, please correct me about the history. But I also know that Mark Ellingwood, years ago when he was treasurer and this board was a mess, he got blamed for things that weren't even his fault and got fed up and left because people said that he was doing things for his county. And if you know Mark Ellingwood, he is one of the most honest people I've ever met in my life.
And I did talk to Dick Jewett, who was on this board not too many years ago with Pat Pullen and a bunch of other people. And he did say that, you know, Tom did go through it. And he said it was very painful, you know, is how he described it. But I'm not asking for the staff and the ED piece of it to be changed. I'm not. I'm saying when it hits that finance committee, that I should have a say and input in the creation of that budget before it goes to the board. Just exactly, Carol, how you explained it. And that's where, when I started, first of all, I did not have a budget. I had done averages of certain line items to get ready for that meeting. I wanted to educate myself. I didn't want to be emotional. I wanted to stick with the facts when I made suggestions about certain things. I did not think that we would agree on everything, but I thought that we would bring anything that we couldn't come to consensus onto the board tonight. But I did not, which was, in my opinion, a rehearsed putt from Cindy to Jeff to tell me to stop talking, basically, that meeting. So I did shut down the meeting. And I was very hurt and I was very humiliated.
Okay, we're gonna steer this back on track to the bylaw change.
Yep.
Jeff, helping, go ahead. You're on mute.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd just like to say, as a director, I rely on both of you as very much, because you're both very strong-minded. You both love your jobs and you're both very good at your jobs, whether it's volunteer or paid. Cindy, you do an awesome job. You're also very strong-minded. I think that's what makes you strong and good at your job. And I think the same of Patty. I think sometimes people that are very much alike sometimes clash. I think I really think that that's good for Vast, is that we have two of the strongest people we can put together in a team, and also our other leadership with presidents and vice presidents. That's best for Vast. And I just really want to make the right decisions to make sure everybody's working together. So let me, if I could just ask a question, Cindy, at that meeting, you're basically, that's the first time that
Jeff,
you're bringing.
We're talking about the bylaw change. We're not talking about
Understood,
events that took place. We're talking about the bylaw change.
Understood. Okay. I just
Okay.
want to know if that's the first time she brings her budget in front of everybody, or has it already been? I mean, like tonight's the first night we've really gotten to see it when we got it on Friday. So I
Yes.
understand that. I agree with Cindy as far as she should be bringing her budget forward, but I also really feel like we should all really trust the talent we have in place with that budget when it comes to us. And I know there's even more time to talk about it. Okay. And so anyways, back to the bylaw change. I don't know if we're ready for a motion yet or not. I don't know if there's any more questions or anybody else that wants to ask any questions.
I'll answer your question. Every year, Sheila and I start in April to talk about end of the year and developing the budget. We have normally another meeting in the beginning of May, and then another meeting in the middle of May to bring Patty in so we can review and she can learn the different, I invited her into this process a few years ago so she would understand, because our budgets are very comprehensive, and ask questions. And then we send the budget out to the board. a few days before the June meeting, and then I go through the budget with the board of directors and the changes that are in there. And then you guys have a month to make suggestions, call meetings, ask questions, and then you vote on it in July.
So my only finish to that question, I guess Jeff Fay may be able to answer it, is that meeting that you all pulled together and you have that meeting on finance. What is the purpose of that meeting? So we're accepting your budget, and then is it for everybody to have a little bit of say or input on that budget at that point? Or what is the purpose of the meeting that we are speaking of?
Yeah, like asking questions or saying like, oh, well, shouldn't you put a little bit more in there? Or why is that one so high? Or if we spent more last year, why are you proposing we spent less this year? Questions like that. And yeah, and that's what the meeting is for. You know, this association, the treasurer, and Patty does an amazing job at what she does, disseminating the past expenses, which is exactly how the bylaws are drawn out and how the majority of associations work. I sit on the board of a trade association with no employees, and so the officers of that organization work collaboratively to put the budget together. But when there's a professional staff, as Carol pointed out, associations don't do it that way. You know, the majority of them, and especially when they're funding sources, you know, they're giving money out to people that have personal, you know, or investments locally. I'm not really saying that right, but I said it earlier. I'm just reiterating. So I'll stop. Mark's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Mark.
I wanted to ask what's meant by input. There was that meeting for input. There was, now that we have it to review for the next month for input, what exactly is meant by input? And that's my simple
So I'm going to go back to exactly where Carol started. One would be the staff and the ED working on the budget with the projects that they have planned for the upcoming season. The input would be at the finance committee when the president and the treasurer are there with the ED to provide input. I started by questioning membership, you know, the budget that's attached that you guys have tonight is much different than the budget I saw that day. So I started questioning membership, and we got down into some other things, and it was just like Cindy said, Jeff was at work, didn't have his camera on, and she asked him to, she stopped me and asked him to explain roles and responsibilities.
Excuse me, Patty, but we're trying to talk about the amendment, not the meeting.
Yep.
So what?
But I'm saying
what
that
do you
meeting, I'm
envision
just
as
explaining
input?
to you, when I started asking questions and started saying, listen, maybe we should look at membership, which was set at that particular proposal that was Cindy was covering at the same number last year. And as an example, I said, shouldn't we look at reducing membership by about 10% since we haven't made that number in the last 2 years?
I
That's where it
just need to
started. I think
correct
I got
it.
2 or 3 questions in, and that was it.
It didn't change. I have not changed that budget that I showed you that day is the exact same one. I based it on last year's membership, Patty. I didn't base it on anything before that. I changed the ratio of funding, which I explained in that meeting. But the number of TMAs were the same number of TMAs we sold last year.
Okay.
This is different. This was, I don't want to get into that. We're talking about the amendment. You're talking, right. I'm not
Yes.
going to challenge that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd
What
like
is
to ask
meant
why
by-
we need an amendment then if what we have, it just needs to be executed. Because we're really, if you're saying what I'm saying is what you want, and that's really what our bylaws state now, why do we need to change them? We just need to make sure they're executed that way.
Because it doesn't say that, and I was pointed out to me that the bylaws do not say that I have any input or influence on the budget. In the meeting, at that point, I stopped the meeting.
What you do as far as the president and the treasurer have the opportunity to discuss the budget and go over it and make any tweaks when everyone is in agreement, and then it's presented to the board. Am I incorrect in saying that?
You're incorrect, because it never got that far, Carol. I got 2 or 3 questions in, and it stopped.
But who stopped
I
did you? Oh, okay. Well, I guess then.
So I thought that the cleanest way to do this, whether it's us here or future people is just to have it in there that at the fiscal committee, that's how I think I put it in there, right? Yes, as chair of the fiscal committee, that at that level, that I would have input, the treasurer. It's not prior to, it's at the fiscal committee. The treasurer as chair of the fiscal committee.
I think the policy committee would have to look at the bylaw change, and it really should not be just voted on tonight on this one item. That's my personal feeling, but everybody else can change their mind on that.
I would just wonder, I mean, so Jeff and Mark, that night at that meeting, you have a chance to put in your input, and Patty feels like.
Again, we're getting back to the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not
right.
discussing
Well,
the meeting.
I think, yeah, I understand. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a motion to accept the amendment as stated. Washington County.
Is there a second to that motion?
Orleans will second.
Is there any further discussion about the amendment?
Can somebody, this is Mike Burns. I'm sorry. I'm down in Texas. I've had on and off connections with this here. Can you restate the motion for me?
Do you want me to write? You want me to restate the language that they just did the motion on, Mike?
Please, I missed it. I missed it in the first
That's okay.
run.
I would say the treasurer, as chair of the fiscal committee, shall work in collaboration with the Vast executive director on the financial planning in the form of a proposed budget to be presented to the Vast board of directors.
Okay.
This is the step before it comes to you.
Yeah.
So you're not
most of the discussion. I caught most of the discussion, but I missed the reading of the motion though. Sorry.
Did you hear me? Are you good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So what?
How did you say shall or may?
Oh, Lewis has his hand up.
Go ahead, Lewis.
No, I don't have it up.
Oh, somebody was talking. Oh, it was Doug Jacobs.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Somebody asked if it was shall or may. It's shall. In what I wrote. I don't know if it should be may, but it's shall in what I said and what I wrote. I don't know who that was, but somebody asked that.
That was me.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
Oh, this is Doug Jacobs. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Doug.
No, we can't. Okay. Maybe you don't want to. No. Hey, I have a question. I just have a question regarding this amendment or the way it was before. It doesn't make any difference. So the executive director and her staff do up this proposed budget as they did. And now the treasurer, no matter who it is, the treasurer comes into that meeting and say they want to change something. They want to increase membership, decrease membership, change anything. So who has the final say according to our bylaws or our policy? Like say the treasurer and the executive director and the president can't agree on changing a line item to a budget. So who has the say in the bottom line of the whole operation? There's got to be an authority right there, a person that has the authority to make the change. Because like say they can't agree, you know what I mean? How would that work?
So I can tell you what our current Vast policy says. This isn't the bylaws, this is the policy. On page 6 says, in accordance with the bylaws, the executive director must prepare and submit for director's review and approval a proposed budget for the next fiscal year period for Vast general, trails, and scholarship accounts. The income for the proposed budget shall be based upon projected sales of TMAs and other sources of incomes from grants. The executive director shall recommend a price for TMAs for the upcoming year.
I guess my only question will be is why do we need the meeting at all then if that's just getting it through to us? You come up with it to us. Why was there a meeting?
I don't know, because the meetings we've had before were not official finance committee meetings. They were just meetings that I was either meeting with Sheila or I reached out to Patty and said, would you like to get together and we can go over the budget? And I don't know. I'm not trying to throw shade, but we haven't had a finance committee meeting in a few years. And I've even asked Patty if she's wanted to have them every quarter. And I'm just saying that this was the first official, you can go through your emails and all that to see when the last time.
Well, we had one to go over the year end stuff a month ago or 2 months ago. So.
Well, that was the first time. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking because
I'd like to understand with this amendment. So So the
I don't-
the treasurer, you want the treasurer to be able to have input, and you want that line item in there. But it's not to be that the treasurer is creating or changing anything with regard to the budget. That they're making suggestions to changes that'll eventually get to the board of directors. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, so the budget would come to that fiscal or finance committee meeting, whichever language you want to use, right? And then I would be able to make suggestions as we went through. Cindy went through the Trails Fund, and before we went General Fund, before I went to Trails Fund, I said, let's go through and I have some questions or comments about this. So I want to be able to do that. And I think any treasurer should be able to do that before it comes here, because now when we get to that budget, I've got a ton of questions.
That's
So I'm gonna
fine.
hold you
I
all
think-
up tonight with my questions, and it would have been nice to have done that with just the 3 of us or 4 of us before we got here.
That's not what the bylaws read now, though. I mean, it's Cindy's or the ED's responsibility. By what she read there, she can take your input or not. I mean, I hate to be that much of an ass about it, but
and then-
that's what it says. And she's
And
responsible
that's-
for it. So her discussion, now you can have discussion on it when the same time we do at the board meeting and stuff, and input there for all of us to be there. But I mean, the bylaws, it's her responsibility.
And that's
So
why
I'm
I'm
not-
asking for it to be a collaboration between the two when it gets to the fiscal committee.
Thank you,
piece.
Patty. Roger?
I don't think so.
So my clarification question is, if this gets voted on by the board tonight, does it need to be approved by the members because it's a bylaw change?
Yes.
Okay, so just
So
make
the-
sure
so the
everybody's
only-
on the same page.
So the only thing that your approval tonight does, it makes it an agenda item for the membership at the annual meeting.
Okay. I don't really know what the answer to this is. I just get really, really weary about hearing anybody that's an elected member, or in Patty's words, a volunteer member, being shut down at meetings. To me, knowledge is power. And so everybody should have a voice at the table. And if Patty comes through and says that we should build a skyscraper for Vast headquarters, well, that's Patty's opinion, but it should be heard. So I don't know why I think the board is, including myself, is missing some sort of context here as to what's going on. I really feel that Patty, or does leave the name out of it, the Vast treasurer should have a voice from once that initial budget gets proposed by Cindy all the way up through. I mean, Patty knows this. Again, I'll take the name out of it. The treasurer knows the budget more intimately than I do, and I rely on them to be a filter and to try to weed some stuff out before it even gets to me. And it's not that I wouldn't expect the ED wouldn't do that, but I feel like there's a reason that committee is put together, and I think it's important to make sure that everybody has input. So, I mean, I seconded this motion, and I certainly support it, but I'm just wondering, like, why is this even an issue, and why is this being brought up? I mean, there's a lot of hush hush going on about, well, let's not talk about the meeting, but the meeting was the reason that this bylaw was proposed in the first place. So let's just figure this out and figure out what we need to do moving forward.
Thank you, Roger. Any other question? Any other discussion before we call the question?
Yeah, Jeff, and as Cindy said, I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of treasurers sat in that seat, and some are more proficient at it than others. Patty probably being the most I've seen. My concern is, if you're going to rely on that treasurer to develop the budget, and we have somebody who basically can't do that job, is that going to input or impact the ability to put a budget together? And I'm concerned about that.
Just to clarify, Pat, that the motion does not, or the wording does not have anything to do with the treasurer building the budget. It's just offering input to the budget.
Collaborating.
Yes.
In my opinion, everybody on this board has the ability to offer input into it.
But I think it's just the timing of that collaboration and the the way when it's presented and how it's presented, whether it's as a group like the rest of us or where they have their own little meeting and stuff. I think it's taken different ways there.
Right.
So I would pose the question, why is she even at these meetings if her input is not needed? I guess I'm like, so have the meetings without the vast treasurer if that's the case. And then once it moves forward from that phase, then the whole board and all the officers are involved. I'm just really, I can't imagine being at a committee meeting that I'm involved with and being told, well, you have no input here. Like, I would tell you guys to pound sand as well. So I don't get it.
Okay, but may I just say the budget is pretty extensive. So you've got your staff that is looking it over. The reason why you would bring your president and your treasurer in prior to the board seeing it is so you don't get into the weeds like we are right now. They're going to come to you. They're satisfied with the way it all looks, and they're going to present the budget so that in a united front, so that there's not this big hoopla with everybody digging into it. Now, we do all have a say, which is more than most associations do. They give you the budget in advance to review and bring up any questions that you may have that you feel going forward, which is at the retreat, which you have an opportunity to chat about it at that point too. So, you know, if you brought every one of you into the process of every line item or going over every budget, you're never going to have a budget. You're never going to get satisfied. It will never satisfy everybody. So I'm not saying you're going to hide anything. That's not the intent. But if our bylaws pretty much state this, and one particular meeting caused, for lack of a word, this hoopla, then going forward, why do we need to change any language? Let's hope that going forward, the treasurer, president, and the staff can work together to present to the board as a united front.
And Carol, I totally agree with you. It's just a safeguard for whoever's sitting in these roles in the future that don't have to experience what I experienced.
Well, when you
That's
say a
all.
safeguard, because the buck stops with the president at the end of the day.
Well, because I was quoted bylaws. So that's why I'm here talking about bylaws.
Lewis
Have it
has his
changed.
hands up.
We also have to
Lewis
consider
has
the
his
separate.
hand up.
Lewis, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't have hands on this one. I got to use the
Yeah.
internet.
Hang on, Mike. Let Lewis
That's what I
talk,
got.
please.
Am I up?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay,
Lewis.
Exactly what Carol says. There's no sense in changing the bylaws. Everybody has an input. They don't need check and balances. You got a paid ED and you got the president. And like Carol said, that's where the buck stops. You do not need to have someone else looking over somebody's shoulder. We all have input on it. We don't need this crap going on. Let's vote on this and get done with it.
I consider that
Done.
the question being called. All those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
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 Wait a minute.
Aye.
Does people understand if they say aye that it changes the bylaws?
The
Or no, it
motion's
doesn't.
been called.
It
know,
it does
but you
not
need to
change
do a
the
roll vote.
bylaws. It does not change the bylaws. All it
Just
does,
puts it on the agenda, right?
it puts it on the agenda for the membership to vote on at the annual meeting.
Yeah, but people know if they vote yes, it goes on the agenda. If they vote no, it doesn't go forward.
Correct.
Explain that to everybody before they vote.
Well,
Already called the-
if the tonight votes no, then I can petition to have it put on the agenda
Correct.
Good
for the
for you.
bylaw.
That is
You're going to
correct.
probably have to do
That's
a
correct.
roll call in order to get the right vote.
Yeah, I agree, Carol.
Yeah, roll call. Yeah, roll call.
Addison,
No.
Bennington,
No.
Caledonia,
Yes.
Chittenden,
No.
Essex,
Yes.
Franklin,
No. Nay.
Grand Isle,
Muted, Grand Isle.
Jeff Porter, you're muted.
No, Grand Isle was no.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Lamoille,
you.
Yes.
Orange,
No.
Orleans,
Yes.
Rutland,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Wyndham,
No.
Windsor,
Yes.
I have 7 each, Jeff.
I have 7 each as well.
President breaks the tie, right? Isn't that what the policy and bylaws state?
That is
I
correct.
believe it does. Can somebody double check that for me, please? I believe that is the case.
Where's Jim Hill?
Unfortunately, I had the bylaws and not the policies open. Sorry.
Should be in the bylaws.
Yeah. I don't have a copy handy real quick.
I'm going
Cindy's
to it.
looking. Probably under the duties of the president.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Duties of the president. Serve as chairman of the board of directors, preside at meetings of the board of directors, be ex officio member of all committees, accept nominating, provide active leadership for the association and carry out the recommendations of the board of directors and appoint each committee as are necessary with advice, consent of the board of directors to ensure the proper function of the association. Committee shall assist in carrying out the mission. President, with the consent of the board of directors, our board of directors shall change the committee with their duties as applicable. The president shall appoint a committee chair and shall not chair any committee. Maybe it's under the description of the board.
Maybe under meetings.
Yeah. It is. Recognition. Standing.
Guess we can officially say this is unchartered.
And okay. Session. Mark, are you looking at bylaws?
Yes, I'm not seeing anything yet.
I'm pretty sure that's the purpose of the president in an even numbered board is to break tie.
I think so.
No, can't hire the custodian to come in and break the tie.
It's probably a Robert's rule.
No, that's just about running meetings. Duty to conflict of interest. I don't see it.
No.
Cindy,
Yeah,
if you look under Robert's rules, the purpose of the president is in fact to break a tie in the case of a tie. It's in Robert's rules.
That's why I said it's in Robert's rules.
okay, I don't see it, so. I haven't looked at the bylaws, so.
Allow the chair to cast the deciding vote, and Jeff, you're chair of this board. The way I see it.
Well,
Well, if
my
you want
vote
to get
is no.
picky about it, I guess majority wins. It's 7-7, it's not a majority.
Straight. As the deciding vote, I vote no.
I'm glad it's live streamed for people to see that, and we didn't even present this to membership.
Yep.
I appreciate everybody's input and honesty and respectfulness, so thank you.
Okay. Back to my agenda. No, look at that. 2025 budget. Cindy?
Yep. All right. Bear with me a sec here. Get it open. To Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And for those of you that have the paper or on your computer, if if you're not on the computer, you can't see my screen, I will say what line items and all of that. And then I will be sending out a version that has my notes and stuff tomorrow, or anything note-wise that's added to this. Let me share. Okay. All right, so this is what you were sent, and this is the TMA numbers are the same that I put together a few weeks ago. The difference in the income line versus the end of the year for this year, even though it's based on the same amount of TMAs, is because I structured the percentage changes so the general fund would be balanced next year if we sold the same amount of TMAs. And so the first thing I did was Sheila and I went through and and by the way, Sheila's on this board meeting, and she will be on every board meeting, and she will be at the retreat as well. So if people can get to know her and understand what she does for her financial responsibilities for this organization. So what basically I did was I changed the Trails Fund was at 72.1%. Now this is the income from TMAs, not including the $15, the $5 and the $10 increases. So it was the Trails Fund was getting 72.1%, and the General Fund was getting 27.8%, and the Scholarship Fund 0.10%. I changed it so the budget would be balanced for next year. Changed the Trails Fund to 65.3%, the General Fund to 37.7%, and the Scholarship Fund to about 0.10%. That one stayed the same. So the reason that those changes were made, and the reason why the budget has gone up over the past few years for the general fund, for the most part, is because we've taken on the TMA processing at the Vast office. And so again, I will be sharing all these notes and everything with you guys, but we've taken all the TMA processing. Total last year was $206,000, which is $100,000 over what we charge for processing and handling. That's that $5 fee. All increases for the past 5 years have gone directly to trails, which was that $5 and $10. And now, and I ran the math, club dues, clubs are actually getting about $100,000 more total than Vast is actually given to operate for the general fund. So the general fund, right now, this current year, was, out of TMA money is 533,000. So then I thought about it more, and also in the Vast bylaws, it says that the Trails Fund can never get less than 40%. So the fact that we've been operating at 72.1 or now at 65.3 is still exceptionally good for a nonprofit association. Usually they're running at the opposite of that. Well, then I started thinking about it more, and I thought, well, what about that $5 and $10? Because in the past, that hasn't been showing up in the budget. That money has been just going directly to trails, but the money goes to trails. So the true story is here in that the general fund for TMAs in this yellow portion was 533,447, which is 20.9% of all of the funds that came out of TMAs. That includes that $5 and $10. The scholarship fund, 2,078. The Trails Fund at 69% is 1.764 million. And the this is the TR is the money that comes directly from that $5 and $10 increase, which is another 10.1%. So in actuality, the trails are funded at 79.1%. So it's actually higher than what how it was breaking out before. Vast General is at 20.9% of TMAs. So really, because now we're putting it through the budget and it's not just going directly into Trails checking account, it's going through the budget to show Trails are actually running at a much higher percentage than the operation of this organization. So then some of the things I changed as well was that I reduced the amount. So the amount of income is reduced by $48,000 based on the amount of TMAs that are being sold and other things from last year. And then I went through expenses and reduced some expenses. The first thing to show you is that we actually broke out, because before it just said employee benefits and it added this 36,000. And I'm looking at under the benefit line item. Let me move over one. Let me move my box so I can move this over a little bit more so we can get an items. Okay. All right. And so we broke it out because we also, it should not be included in employee benefits when it's employer taxes and mandated responsibilities of the organization. And so we broke that out to show that that's 36,000, where that used to be added into the employee benefits. But those are mandated things that VAS is responsible for having employees. I also suggested that we get rid of all of the expense accounts. That's sort of an old, thing that I inherited when I got here, that these line items were there. But we've also in recent years we have an employee travel line item, employee expenses. And we also have non-employee. So I took these, zeroed out the expense lines for the executive director and the officers, because now they can just fall under non-employee expenses and travel. Also reduced employee travel due to low snow. May go over if we have a good winter, but updated from, and I updated this from the budget sent on 6/18, but it's reduced to 2,000 from 3,500. And I will color code this before I send it out, Roger. The employee mileage is reduced due to, low snow. Non-employee authorized travel, I upped by $500 because we've got getting rid of all those expense accounts. Some of these have not changed. Operating expenses, the online TMA credit card fees, that's the same as this year because I based the budget on the amount of TMAs we sold last year. So I'm assuming if we sell that amount, that we will also be spending the same on credit card fees. Supplies, I just want to state that it looks like we're almost, if you look at year to date, we're at 4,800 right now, budgeted 5,000, and I increased 5,500. But if you look back, I think last year or the year before, that line item was budgeted at about $8,000, and Mandy's done a great job, and Sheila at cost cutting and finding deals. Let's see, membership postage is down. So basically, I've reduced, some of the professional services are the same. Increased technical because they've raised the prices on us, you know, they're charging us more. Other professional, that's kind of a holding place in case we ever need to hire another professional, which we've had to do in different years for different things, but we didn't do it this year. Annual meeting staying the same. Media and communication, the 7,800 series, a lot of reductions in that. Travel wise, supplies, mailing, rest area placement. The 7,900 series, association travel, so other association travel, reduced that. Congress reduced it. Committees reduced it from 7,000 to 2,000. PR and marketing raised the trade shows by 2,000 just because it's costing more, and it's the biggest way that we can promote what we do to help increase TMA sales, hopefully. I mean, without snow, it's not going to help, but hopefully with snow, it will continue to broaden our scope of bringing people here. PR and marketing supplies, reduce that because we're good there. Increase the safety programs because we've been doing more safety initiatives. And so increase that budget $1,000 from last year because we spent a little over 3,000 this year. So basically reduced expenses by $51,000 in the budget for this coming year. And does anybody have any initial questions about any of the stuff I just went over in the general fund?
Could you, I know this is going to be, I'm not good at noting this.
You froze up.
Can you go by exceptions and things? Sorry, you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of out in the boonies. Can you by chance send that out in Excel or something with just by exception notes where you change something maybe over 10% or something? With notes on the line items?
Yeah, I can do that.
I can never remember them by the time, and it'll be a week before I can look at the stuff, and I'll never remember it.
Yeah, I didn't do it for this because I figured I would just go through and explain it. And then when I send it out to you tomorrow or the next day, I'll have notes, I'll color code it and all that for you too.
If you're going to do that, just something that I can tie back into it and get the notes, because I think I've been guilty of not going through as much as I should have, and I need to start.
Sure, I'm more than happy to do that. So I've projected that if everything goes right and great, and this budget for the general fund will end at $4,207 in the black next year. I can't see if anybody has their hands up, so people just need to speak up if they have questions, because I've got my shared screen, and I think everybody else can only see my shared screen too.
Hey, Cindy.
Yeah.
Way up at the top of when you first started sharing, on the right-hand side, right above the yellow, where it says was and now.
Yeah.
The numbers don't add up. are they both supposed to add up to 100%? Because they don't. The 72 and 27 does, but the 65 and 37 do not.
They probably had other numbers behind them. You know, it was probably like 65.38.
It was just I looked at one and I'm like, okay, that's 100, and then the other one is like the now is actually over 100%. The
Oh,
trails
you know,
fund and general fund combined is over 100%.
yeah, what I did was I think I updated a trails fund and not the general fund. So I'll fix that. And when I send it out, it'll be at 100%.
Okay, that was the only thing I saw. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'll just make it green so I know to do that. Okay.
Cindy, can we stay in that area as well, since Dustin was just there?
Yeah.
So the Trails Fund was 72.27. You're proposing 65. Is it 65.37?
65.3.
No, to 37.7, whatever it is, right? So you're looking to take about 7% from the Trails Fund and move it into, maybe even a little more than that, into general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate statement?
Yep.
So last year we had, the members voted a $10 increase to go just to trails, and increase before that was, I think 2019 was a $5 just to put in trails, because membership felt that trails was underfunded. So with just them doing the $10 increase last year, and we're moving at 7, maybe more than that, maybe it looks like almost 10%, which was, the $10 was 10%. So we're taking what they voted to go into trails last year, hypothetically, and moving it into general.
Nope. We're not. I mean, I guess you could call it that, but that's not what it is. It's coming out of the what was in the trails fund before as a percentage. It's not the money that they voted is this right here. The 258,300.
It's all part of the big pot for trails. And
Right.
And so that $10 was about 10%, and we're moving close to that now out of trails into general a year later.
I'm suggesting that it be reassigned because yes, Patty, that's correct. Because you have to have a certain amount of money to run the organization.
And I'm not disputing that, but do you think that the perception from members would be, we voted that money in and now you're moving it out?
But that's not what I'm doing. But that was the whole point of breaking this out, was to show that that wasn't.
Maybe you can explain that to me again. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That yellow, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
I'm sure I'm not the only one with that question, so.
Well, because when I went and did this, because that trails money it never came into the budget. And
Right,
now
it's
it
in
is
reserve.
coming into the budget.
Yes.
And it always went directly to trails, and it's still going directly to trails. It's just coming through this budget now. And so to be fair, because we've always done it with percentages, is to now show that the actual portion that's going to trails is actually higher, because we never, for the past few years since we had that increase, it wasn't showing up in the trails fund as a percentage of the TMA money, because it was being taken out before the money actually came into the budget.
Right, and I think I think I have in my report, it's 170 of that 258 was the $10. And the rest of it was the $5 from 2019 that we moved in. But that line item in our management account is 258, which is what you have there. Yep, so. But now we're saying we're moving 10% almost out of trails and into general.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that general needs more money, but maybe the ask should be for membership for more money for general, whether it's $5 or whatever. But I just think we might end up in a mess if we try to, after last year's vote, take money out of trails and put in general. That's my only disclaimer. And I'm going to stop. I made my point. But that's how I feel.
Well, there's also a reduction in income and expenses. You know, I mean, I don't know what else you would cut unless you're going to cut staff. I don't know what else you would cut as an organization.
And there's some things I felt, you know, that we've averaged even higher, you know, so, you know, yeah, I think you had equipment and computers. I think you put it 600. We've averaged about 3,600, and I know this year we went way over. You know, some things here I don't even want to. Can you explain why you lowered the bank and credit card and 7,300, 1008? That I don't understand. 7,300, 1008.
Why I lowered it? I lowered it because the actual this year, based on the amount of membership we sold, was $1,861. So if we're going to sell the same amount of membership this year, which is where we get most of our bank and credit card and direct deposit fees, then that line item will go lower.
All right, that makes sense. I just know the last 4 years we've averaged about 4,500 there. I just hate to come off short, that's all. And that looked good, you know. There was another one I had. Oh, that's true, right? Nope, I'm good on that now. I'm confused on the postage stuff too. And that's in the office supply area? The 7,400 stuff? Did we break that down differently or something?
The membership postage?
Well, it goes, we have a regular postage on 100, oh, I just wrote on that. 2, and then we have 1003B.
Yep. So postage, the 1002 postage is just general postage out of this office. And then the membership postage is the postage that we pay to the folks that do the mailing of the TMAs.
Had the wrong thing there.
So the reason I lowered it to 16,000 for next year is because this year it's only came in at about 12,000 because of the amount of TMAs we sold.
Okay, I'm good. All right. And I went in the professional area, the 7,600, 1002. The legal.
Yep.
Okay, so we went down to 4,000. I know we only did 2,000 this year, but the last couple of years we were 16K. And was that due to something specific?
Yep, it was due to the RRG.
Okay.
The development of the RRG,
Perfect.
our insurance company.
Yep. Okay, and then the technical is really high this year, and we averaged 16K before. You said it's going up in cost? Is that what I think you said?
Yep, that's the contractor.
Okay. All right, the club stuff, the 1010 and the 7,600 area, we average about 3,400 and we only did 1,800. Is there a reason why you kept it at 7K?
What line item are you looking at, please?
7,600, 1010 in professional.
IRS filings, county. It just depends on when Bonnie charges us. This is the money that we have to pay for our club compliance. So I left it at 7 because I don't know if we're gonna get. We might get a $4,000, $5,000 bill from her before the end of the year for helping the clubs out that get pulled.
We'll tell you the last few years we've averaged About 3,400. So maybe if you had to cut anywhere, that might be an option. I'm just, if you have to do it. Let's see, and I think that's. Whoops. That, PR and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Fast promo items. It's got a 3K. We average about 6,500 on that.
We're just not going to be able to order anymore.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
We ordered a lot last year, so we have inventory to get rid of.
All right. General promotions, I thought you had 6,500 when we talked last, but it looks like you've lowered that now to 2,000. 1006. Is that accurate?
Could have.
Yep. There's a couple other little things there, but not big enough to hold everybody up here. PR and marketing supplies, we average about 2K. You have 1K, so we just won't be able to order, I'm assuming there. I was glad to see safety went up, so that's more realistic, so that's really good. And the legislative stuff, so okay. That's for that's my general funds questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and so then for the Trails Fund, it just the percentage changes in play that we talked about up there. Something to note here, the 5,400 to 2015 is the new line item showing the money coming in for the $5 and $10 that come in, so they don't play into the percentage. That's the total. Other things to note is, let's see here. There's really not a lot to note about the income. Those are just dependent upon Green Mountain National Forest projects, TMA sales for commercial TMA and county dues reimbursements, RTP grooming grants, those grants that Matt does with the state. Maps we still have in here, but just not sure if we're going to be able to reprint or not, because we're still trying to work on the GPS and trail changes. Signs, put it 20,000. So basically for trail income, there's an increase of 147,788. And that primarily is coming from the 258,825. And then for expenses, not a lot has changed here. The grooming is budgeted at the same amount it was budgeted at for last year for expenses. GPS equipment, we're still trying to figure that one out. Matt had some great discussions, and Mark and Jeff with some of the companies that were at Congress this year. And then I added 3 new ones. So they haven't been assigned numbers yet. One of them is general promotion, early bird TMA sales. Oh, this one actually goes to the one above it. Cut, paste. Okay. So that was 6,500. This year, if, we're going to be talking about this more in July, finishing up or deciding on what we're going to do for promotions, like buying gift certificates or whatever. And the proposal will be, because it's not budgeted this year, it would come out of the special projects line item in the reserve account at about $10,000. So the other new one would be a supplement for club equipment grant and aid program. I popped in 50,000 we're gonna need to start supplementing the SSTP for equipment. And then I also put in as a placeholder $100,000 for high elevation trail and parking lot development and other, which would be decided by the board at the retreat. So that would bring an increase in the budget of an increase of $636,000. And the net income for the Trails Fund would be 65,000. If everything was brought in as it's supposed to be and spent out, it would leave another 65,571 at the end of next year. Just to back up and show you the last portion, and then I'll stop and answer questions, is that this year for end of year, we're looking at ending, even though the general fund is ending in the red, the Trails Fund is ending in the black at almost $1 million, 921,600. So I went down and below the scholarship, and I put together recommendations for reserve accounts. So to move some of that fund, about 670,000 of that 900,000 over into reserve accounts, which would be voted on by the board as well. Sometimes that's done at the retreat, sometimes it's done later on in the season. Jeff's got his hand up. Jeff Halpin.
Hey, Cindy, just to back up for a second.
Sure.
I was just going over where you had the highlighted section back at the top. I've been looking this over since we got it on Friday. And I didn't see that in the packet, this whole section here. Is that in our packet? Because I'm not seeing any of that in our packet. You know, the whole thing about the and all that.
Nope, because I wanted to go through it first with you, but I will be sending it out to you tomorrow or the next day with all of this information so you can bring it back to your clubs in your county and ask questions.
Okay. And I guess shouldn't go back too much, but on the 10%, I'm just trying to understand that because I do rely on you and Patty for this stuff. Is that something that's new, or have we been doing it that way? It's just you put it in at a different percent this year, I guess.
Yeah, so when I first started, the percentages was actually much higher on the general fund, and we were able to lower it. And it's been at the same percentage for about probably 6, 7, maybe even 8 years. This is the first year that we've needed to change the ratio. And that's why I pointed out in the bylaws, it states that the Trails Fund can never get less than 40%. And we're much higher than that. But this is the first year that we would need to make a change in order for the general fund to balance.
Okay. And well, I just wonder, I kind of, well, we have plenty of time to talk about it. I'm just wondering if there's not other places we could derive that from instead of actually coming from the trails, because I feel like we gave our membership our word about going to trails. But I understand that you have to make the budget balance also. One other quick question was down at the 6,500 you put aside for the TMA early bird. Was there something also in general for that? Also, was there something listed in general?
No, not yet. I mean, I guess the only thing that we could do, originally I did have something in general, but then we didn't have enough to go towards it. And we are promoting the trail. So I thought, well, I guess we could just take it out of the trails. But we do have 4207. So that could be added to that 6,500 and then just zero this out.
We would be talking about what to do on your ideas and stuff. I mean, we've had a lot of ideas back and forth at the July meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of like the long range planning committee. They're the ones who threw out the idea originally to the board a few months ago, and then came, with snowmobiles, and now other folks have gotten, other ideas. And so the board will make that decision in July.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions for Cindy?
I have some questions on Trails Fund, but I'll let somebody else go if they have general fund stuff before I get into trails, since you did that first.
Go ahead, Patty.
All right. And Cindy, I know you mentioned this, so my apologies for having to have you repeat it. Under trails expenses, 8,300 2010C, the Green Mountain National Forest that went up
Yep.
to 815.
Yep.
Can you explain why it went up so much?
There's more projects on the National Forest, so that money comes in from them and goes out. So it's a wash. It's also 815 on the income and it's 815 on the expense side. It is every year on that line item.
Yep.
It's not the same amount of money, but it's always a wash
yeah.
in and out.
Yeah, okay. It's just a big number. And GPS and contracts is a 65 again because it's year 2 leasing, so it's pretty much going to be the same numbers as it was last year, and it will be the same numbers more or less next year.
Correct.
Other than the sending of data, correct?
Correct.
More you groom, that number would go up a little bit within that because I think we're about 17K lower. Just because of the data sending back and forth. So just want to make sure folks are aware of that one. And then the 8,300 2037, the insurance policy for trails from 3,500 down to 1,500. Is that due to the RRG or is there another reason?
Yeah, because the RRG money comes from the SSTP budget now. We moved that over. Because that's part of our contract with the state of Vermont for that, the funding that we get is that it can pay for insurance.
Perfect. And then there's the 3 new items.
Yep.
So I know I heard you answer Jeff's question there that these will be items that'll be discussed, and I think I saw it in the agenda part of. Where did I see it? I don't know. They'll be discussed at the summit or retreat or whatever we're calling it this year. But if it's in this budget, and we don't have finalized proposals, for example, the high elevation trail. We don't know what clubs, we don't know what the cost would be. We don't know the expense going forward to support that and where does the money come from, once that is done. By putting that 100K in there, it kind of gives, and if it's voted on by membership, obviously, if it stays there, it gives the green light to do just that without a proposal, and I know people will in good faith probably do the proposal anyway. I'm not saying that, but the reality is it doesn't have to come before the board if the membership votes on that 100K. Should it be reserved? Because I understand we don't have the details yet, but it's something probably you want to do. Should it go into reserves versus in the line item on budget? Because we haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I just put it in as a placeholder. So it can certainly move into a reserve rather than being in the budget. I just know that the discussion is going to be in July. And so having it in there as an idea of how much money, because we don't know if are we going to be leasing land? Are we going to be buying easements? Are we going to be just paying for plowing or parking lot development? It was really just a way of like, okay, because otherwise, the other thing too is you could get rid of these and then end the year, another $150,000. But to operate this fund and not have it closer to just being in the black a little bit, that also justifies the reason for the percentage changes, or so I see both sides of it, Patty. I completely understand what you're saying. I grappled with the same thing myself. So I think either way, and that's why I haven't asked Sheila to even assign it a number or anything at this point, because it's just a point of discussion.
And then, I struggle with the promotions TMA sales being that 6,500 in trails versus general. All promotional stuff is in general. So I struggle with that and as well. So and I think those were, let me just make sure I wrote some of the questions. Let's make sure. All right. So you already answered that. Oh, the encumbered stuff, Cindy.
Yep.
That's not listed anywhere on here. And you usually have it as a line item to show that
It's not, we don't do the encumbered. anymore. That money it doesn't go through this. It already comes out. We changed that last year. It already comes out. It's automatically put
You know how you
into the
have
trails
green
checking
and all
account.
that, you had a line item off to the side just so people were fully aware of that money going. You had that last year, and I thought it was nice to have. That's fine. All right, so that you answered that. Answered that. Answered that. Okay. Questions I had written down. I think I'm okay. Okay, I'm concerned with the percentage changes between the two budgets and the items we just talked about in trails being in budget versus maybe in reserves or something like that until we see a final proposal and the board can talk to their clubs and that's why I have. Thank you. Oh,
Roger.
Yeah, I'm just giving a little bit of a fair warning and heads up here. I don't see that my county is going to take the percentage changes very well. But I've got to deep dive into this a little bit myself anyway to kind of understand it a little bit more. So, and I might have some follow-up questions that I will email out. So, but just a heads up, I don't know how well that's going to go on my end.
Thank you, Roger. And just for everybody's information, if you do have budget questions and you do email Cindy, please include the rest of the board and the officers. So everybody's, so she doesn't get the same question answered, asked from 14 different counties. I'll just make it easier. That way everybody has the same information.
Yeah, I think I just have to kind of echo what Roger said. And I know that with accounting, a lot of it is, I don't want to call it smoke and mirrors, but it is a function of how you distribute the expenses in different buckets. But to show a percentage change of nearly 10% going from trails to general fund, and I just think back about annual meetings when there's been discussions about raising TMA costs, $5, $10, $20, whatever it may be, that there's always a few people that stand up and they scream that it costs too much to run the organization in general. And if they see this percentage change, like Roger said, I think our county clubs are going to have a hard time accepting it. I think you do it, you just got to have a really, really good explanation so people can understand how the gymnastics take place. That's all.
Well, I think as Cindy pointed out, the fact that the clubs are getting more money than what it's taking to run the administrative side of the operation shouldn't really be an issue. I mean, you've got clubs now that with their membership, they were making, less than $1,000. Now they're making, $20,000. So the clubs are actually getting more money since we've gone online with the TMAs. So
maybe overall that's true. I mean, that's not the case for all clubs.
Well, true, but
I
the
also think
majority of
that's
the
a slippery
clubs,
slope,
I think
Jeff.
there were.
Well, but it also has unburdened the clubs from having to sell TMAs, and it's added an additional cost of $100,000 to the general fund. And so the added $100,000, and then I was able to reduce the general fund by $50,000. I mean, it's almost sort of blaming the general fund for taking away the paper TMAs.
I certainly agree with that, and I reaped the benefit myself of Vast taking over the TMAs because it was less volunteer time that I had to commit. But it's a responsibility of us as board members just to make sure we're educated so that we can sell that to our clubs and make sure that we have the accurate information to let them know. But as it's been stated by others, it's a hard sell sometimes, unfortunately.
Well, I will have all of the notes and it color coded and all that kind of stuff for you guys, and I appreciate it. I think you had great questions, and you know, that's why I haven't color coded it yet and didn't send you the notes, because now have even developed even more of them.
Thank you, Cindy. Club's missing extended deadline for the financial analysis, and club's missing the spring seminar.
Yeah,
Cindy.
so thank you. Let's see, where's my little list here? Here it is. Okay, so now we have 7 clubs that never finished the financial analysis, or didn't do it, even though you guys voted to give them the extension and we notified them over and over. I've heard from one club so far that that happened to, and they had a change in officers, and then they hadn't looked at the email, so they weren't aware. And I said at this point that they needed to put in writing. You know, I felt bad for them, but I said that what you need to do now, because you're officially a club not in good standing, is you need to send an email to me, you know, describing what happened, and that I would collect all those and then go to the board of directors, or they individually could petition to be seen by the board of directors, which is what the bylaws state are the steps that need to happen. And so I'm going to reach out to the other 6 clubs as well and make sure that they know that those are the steps that need to take place. And so those clubs, I sent out a list of those clubs to you guys already. And then we have 19 clubs that didn't complete the spring construction course, our chainsaw training. And I didn't know, but that if you, because again, this is a big number. You know, you've got 19 clubs plus 7 clubs. That's a very high percentage of clubs that would be clubs not in good standing. And I'm cognizant of the fact that if they're not in good standing, they're not receiving funds, which means they're not grooming and things like that. So I didn't know if the board wanted to consider, since you gave an extension for the financial analysis, if you wanted to consider giving an extension for the course and the chainsaw by a week or 2, to see if we could grab any more clubs out of that 19 that didn't complete those courses.
Julianne?
Roger was ahead of me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, my question was not really related to what Cindy just posed, but since I have the mic, I will say I'm confused, Cindy. So the chainsaw course, I don't know. I guess personally, like, I don't think there is any reason that we should be giving extensions for that. My email was bombarded with reminders about that, and I think that now more than ever, admin has sent out a bunch of reminder emails specifically with that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with a club that is now on the 13th hour, just realizing they haven't sent their financial analysis in, of coming forward and saying, listen, this is what happened. Like, the dust has settled from the season. We're now recouping, our volunteers and trying to get things in order for the summertime. I don't have any issue with that, but the chainsaw course and the construction deadline, I mean, that's been advertised very well, in my opinion.
Thank you, Roger. Julianne?
My question was, I know that the chainsaw training was tied in with our insurance. Is there any way to have an opportunity, and not for an extension, but just for the purposes of clubs that haven't taken that course, to take that course, so we're in compliant for us as an organization, as far as the chainsaw safety? Obviously, they wouldn't be the PPE and all of that stuff wouldn't be an option for them, but if it could be put online so that clubs could take it from the perspective of making sure that the organization as a whole is compliant was my question.
Jeff, can I just answer before Stan goes about the insurance? So
Sure.
what it was, Julie, is that this currently to work with a chainsaw in the National Forest, they require chainsaw training. The state is looking at doing the same thing in a number of organizations, not just ours. And Matt has a better explanation of this. Said, look, the National Forest doesn't even have someone to provide the training, and the level of training you're asked for would cripple, especially smaller organizations. So they did not go as far as the National Forest, but they did want something like we put together for them to do. And that they want anyone who's operating a chainsaw on state land to have taken a course. And Matt, you can explain that a little bit better than me. So it wasn't our insurance, but our insurance recognizing that this was a positive, we decided to try to incentivize the chainsaw course. And Matt, if you had anything to add to that, I would appreciate it.
Addison has her hand up.
So stand first.
Gotcha, Lewis. Hang on just a second.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the state is asking that our volunteers, anyone cutting on state property, to have basically some sort of training, or I mean, it's pretty loose how they worded it, but basically they need to be qualified to do what they're doing. And most clubs, I say almost every club, has at least one little piece of state land somewhere. It might just be a little corner or a little piece. There's some clubs that don't, but most have, like you said, at least some little piece. So we just decided to sort of push that for all clubs, just so everyone's compliant. We're not letting anyone slip between the cracks. So that was the premise behind the way that we did it. We felt it would be good for our, being self-insured too, to have something like that in place too, to say we did offer, some basic ideas and thoughts to our volunteers, with one of the biggest ones being just pushing PPE. That's a huge one. And from the state level too, just volunteers having PPE and using it properly is one of the biggest pushes that we're trying to, put out there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, Jeff.
Stan
Go ahead.
first.
Go ahead,
Nope,
Stan.
I just have a question.
So just a
Don't
clarification.
Don't forget Addison.
Yep, Stan had his hand up first, Lewis, so I got you. Sit tight.
Just a clarification on that, the portion about the construction seminar. Failing to complete that course would put the club in a non-conformance status, not in compliance, not in good standing, I guess is the terminology. I thought it simply excluded them from being able to receive any construction grants. It didn't impact their grooming contract.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think it says that you have to follow all policies. And in the policy is the spring construction seminar as part of the trails policy.
But it's only required if you want to receive grants for trail work.
Yeah, but Cindy just said it. They wouldn't be eligible for grooming.
No.
I just want clarification. I mean, it doesn't. I think actually everybody in Windsor County took all of the required courses, but I just wanted to make sure, just in case.
I don't have the trails policy in front of me.
All right. Well, we can.
I'll look it
we
up.
can get an
Stan,
answer
and
to
I'll
that.
let you know.
Yeah, I can email. I'm just concerned. That's all. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
well,
that clubs have a chance to
Well, I mean, and there is a difference in my mind between not being eligible for trail projects, grant money for trail projects, and not being eligible for grooming. That's all. Because the grooming part affects all snowmobilers. Because if you have a club that's not eligible for grooming funds, they may say, "Well, we're not grooming this year," and that section of trail all of a sudden is not groomed. If they're not eligible for grant money, well, maybe they don't put culverts in or something, but
Well,
at least
and
the
they
trails
also
will still
might
be
not
there and
have
they'll be
any
groomed.
projects. They might not have any projects on the board for this year, so they're
You're
like,
right. Exactly.
Right. And I think that was the general impression, that if you weren't going to file a grant, you didn't need to take the course. Other than the chainsaw part of it. Other than the chainsaw part of it, because I think that was clearly specified, that the chainsaw portion was quasi-independent of the rest of it.
Right. So I think like Grafton Outing Club, the Class 4 contract, I think didn't get their analysis in, but it looks like probably their main grooming contract was completed. So I don't know. I just want to make sure we don't have trails that aren't getting groomed because somebody didn't take that seminar. That's all.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Stan. I think that the construction seminar has to do with trail projects, but the chainsaw was different. So I'll get together with Matt tomorrow and we can go over the different policies and email everybody.
Go ahead, Jeff.
no, Lewis.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Lewis. Go ahead, Lewis.
Pardon my
How can you
par-
forget me?
I'm sorry, Lewis. You're off my screen, and
Yeah,
I'm
off
sorry for the slip
I'm
of
off
the tongue.
everybody's screen. So I like what Julie said, and Stan's right. It was, I had two clubs that didn't do the grant, didn't do the seminar because they weren't going to put in for any grants. I am to blame, I think, too, a little asleep at the wheel. I thought that the people doing the chainsaw were the people that were on national or state land, and that's my fault. So even though I did tell all those clubs to do everything, so I would like to see, maybe if Cindy talks to Matt and stuff, put out to all the clubs that didn't do the chainsaw, that they have like the August 15th to get it done, so it appeases the state, national, and our insurance companies. And like Stan said, it doesn't apply to grooming as far as filling up
Thank you,
the
Lewis.
seminar.
Thank you, Lewis.
Okay.
Got it.
Back to you, Jeff. Helping.
Okay, just a couple quick questions. Out of the 7 and the 19 to Cindy, are there any clubs that are actually in both numbers? Does it tighten up the numbers at all? Are there clubs that are faulty on all of them? I mean,
there's a few clubs that are in both, that didn't do the financial analysis and didn't do
Both
the
categories?
seminar or chainsaw, one or the other. Yeah.
So, then the second part of my statement, really more than anything, was when we rewrote the trails and stuff, and we kind of went over the not in good standing thing when we came up with it. And I believe, and I don't know to a T, but I believe there was 4 or 5 things that it left choices for the board of directors to decide on what we do with individual clubs when we decide on things. And some of them were from very small things that wouldn't hurt the club at all to major things that we could almost shut them down physically and financially. So I believe when you say they're not in good standings, we have a lot of options there as a board of directors. It's not just limited to grooming funds or grants.
No, it wasn't options, Jeff. It was a list of things that wouldn't be available to them. It wasn't like a la carte kind of.
I thought we worded it as we could, choose some or all when it was worded on the not in good standings.
I don't believe so.
Let's see.
It goes
Roger, I
Roger,
think
then
you're up.
Andy.
Go ahead, Roger.
I just want to second what Lewis said. I think that in the good spirit of just having everybody up to par with our insurance companies, if we can give them a deadline for that. And then also I'll second what Stan said. I'm pretty sure that this only applies to construction funding, and not grooming. Although I would say that I would think that all clubs could benefit from the trainings. I took it myself for the 30th time in a row, and you always pull something new from it. But the reason I put my hand up originally, about 10 minutes ago, was I would like to, along the line of this topic, really discuss, and I don't know if it's a resource committee or if it's something that we discuss at our spa day coming up in July. We need to talk about these clubs that were getting all this money and not grooming, and what that looks like moving forward. And if that's going to be a repeated behavior every year moving forward, just padding the accounts of these clubs that are not having any expenses. So Jeff, I'm just throwing this out there, and it's not anything that needs to be discussed tonight, but I'd like to see it on our agenda in July, or something put to a committee of discussing the startup payments, and and how it applies to clubs that have no expenses, just getting money continuously year after year and not grooming at all.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
Yep. That might be something that we pawn off to the Trails Committee.
Okay.
It kind of sounds like what we were doing, Jeff, on the subcommittee, almost.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Mandy, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a little bit of clarification on the clubs. So someone did ask if there's a little bit of overlap, and there is. So out of the 7 clubs who didn't submit the 2024 financial analysis, 5 of those 7 also complete the construction course. I did towards the end of May. I had a couple people reach out that are having trouble logging back in so they could complete the chainsaw part of it. So I did send a link out to both the board and the clubs for specifically just the chainsaw. So if that is something that the board wants to have available, just that part, I can have that available to the clubs who didn't, or if we're extending the course. I just want to say we do have different can make that.
Hawks, you're on. You're up.
It was Dustin.
No, I had a request in the chat from Hawks.
Oh, I'm
not
sorry.
sure who it is.
I see his picture.
He's on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
I don't see him on mute.
Hawk is one of the clubs that did not take the, he didn't see the email or didn't take the grooming or the seminar.
Okay. Not getting any audio from him.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hawk, we can't hear you, and he's not on mute. Yeah, he's with the Brookfield Trailblazers. And it does say, Jeff Halpin, if a club has their good standing designation revoked, Vast reserves the right to take the following actions. And it lists the actions. Withhold all funds due to the club from TMA sales and so on.
By saying that we reserve the right, Cindy, do you think that we could individualize those, or is it got to be a whole blanket?
I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just one more thing before we go ahead further is if the clubs are going to come in front of us for explanations and stuff, maybe those clubs that are overlapping in each category, maybe we could have a little more information out to the board of directors for that. And also maybe if these are clubs that Matt's chasing every year for this stuff, that's just good information for us to have while we're talking to them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good suggestion.
Go ahead, Dustin. Thank you for waiting.
So I'm not sure if anybody said it or not, but in one of the last emails on May 31st for the construction seminar, it says, if no one from a club completes the course, including the chainsaw safety and operations section, the club will not be eligible for any VAST grant and aid in fiscal year 25 and will not be in compliance. So the way that that reads is it's not just construction grants, it's you're not in compliance also.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the language that's in the trails policy regarding the, because it does say that they have to follow policy. So you might be right that that was an overstatement.
Okay.
We also don't want to cripple a club either. So
No.
we just, we're trying to get a point across, and just like some children, it just takes a little bit. So, let's see.
I asked Hawk to type his question into the chat.
Yeah. I don't know if he can hear us, it can't hear us, we can't hear him. But we will. Made this mistake when taking the class. So I backed out somehow and I ended up completing the class on vacation on Nantucket. Just hoping to get a chance to retake the class for my club. Okay. We'll look into that. That sounds like a legitimate possibility that we can work with that. So,
Mandy, is that something you can do for individual clubs? Can you make it so that just certain clubs can get back in?
I mean, she can open it back up. It's just if you want to, because the deadline's been passed, I think you would want to make a motion.
Because the course, that ended automatically at midnight on May 31st. So yes, Cindy is absolutely right on that. The chainsaw part, if that is separate, but I can send that separate, I should say. So it's all depending on what the board votes on.
I'd like to make a motion if I can, Jeff. I'd like to make a motion that the chainsaw section could be done by the clubs that haven't done it yet, just to get us in good standings up to give them a deadline of up to maybe the annual meeting, just so that we can get it out of the way and have everybody in good standings. I don't think that one really hinges on anything.
okay. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julianne. Any further discussion? The date is the annual meeting.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Matt.
How long are we going to open it up for? Because I guarantee you there will still be clubs that don't do it, because we opened up the financial analysis again and we still have 6 clubs that didn't do it. So I'm just curious, how is it open-ended? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where to go with it. I don't know.
The date that was proposed was the annual meeting. So September, whatever that is.
9th, I believe, or 8th.
That gives them several months to get it done.
Well, my only concern about having it be so long for them to do it is that, are they going to be using chainsaws in the meantime?
Correct.
You know, that's a long time to give them to do something that they were, yeah.
So Dustin's comment is, it seems like deadlines mean less and less if we extend it that far. And I agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he
as
said it
Matt
more
pointed out,
articulate than I did.
as Matt pointed out, we opened it back up for the financial analysis and it was still not really paid attention to. So
I'd like to amend my motion. I'd like to amend my motion that it gets done by our July powwow or our spa day, which is
Let's
what?
just say July 14th. I think that's the date.
that'll work.
retreat. All right,
13th.
13. Thank you.
And an email will be going out to those clubs.
Yes, and the directors will be CC'd again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we put a
Call the
read
motion.
receipt on those emails?
Yeah, we did last time too.
Don't forget to take a vote there, Jeff. The
Yep,
motion.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
All
So
those in favor of the motion of
Wait,
opening?
you need Julianne to second because Jeff amended his motion.
Oh, correct. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'll second the amendment.
Thank you, Julianne. Thank you, Cindy. All those in favor of the motion of opening the chainsaw portion back up until July 13th for those clubs that did not complete it, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Jeff, can I ask, can those folks be called or a message sent to them via text or something in addition to an email? I know not everybody's good with emails. I am, but I know that's not the case across the board. Is there any way that somebody Cindy, I guess in the office, either yourself or somebody else can contact those clubs to make sure that they actually saw that email?
Yeah, we
and
did last time. We did last time too. We called and left messages and stuff too.
So you're saying, yes, you would do that again?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's that. Let's see. Administrative reports, ED and Trails Administrator.
I have nothing to add.
Matt, anything?
No, I don't either.
Mandy,
Question
anything
on
to add to
Matt's.
yours?
I just wanted to add that the PPE is all in my board report, but the PPE has been ordered and will be distributed to the county directors for the clubs within their county at the July 13th meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question for Mandy. That's perfect. Thank you, Mandy. I did have a question for Matt on the Trails Committee. You said that you were going to be contacting the provider on the 21st about GPS. So I was wondering if you're able to do that and how that call went.
I've not talked to him. There's a meeting set up for Wednesday with them of this week. It got moved to Wednesday. They couldn't do the 21st.
And then what's the minimum, and I probably could have looked this up, for the capital repairs grants? Because I saw somebody didn't meet the minimum, so that was a no. I'm just curious. Do you know off the top? If you don't know, I'll look it up later.
It's different for each class, but that particular case was a class 1 piece of equipment and it's $2,000 for class 1. Yeah, I'm trying to think what they are. I think it might be like $800 for class 2. Anyway, I don't remember them off the top of my head,
Sure,
but
that's
class
okay.
1 is
That was
$2,000.
It was 2,000 for that class 1 situation. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And that
then
same
I
club
need-
put in, they have 2 pieces of equipment, and they put in a capital repairs grant for each piece, so they didn't meet the minimum on that one, but they did on their other one. So they did get some help on their second unit, if that helps any.
That's it. Just looks like you got a lot of stuff coming in for construction grant applications. So appreciate that and all the other stuff you have going on here. And the details as well. Thank you, everybody. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think there's 80 construction grants that have been submitted so far for this year. I believe 80 as of today.
Any other questions before we move into committee reports?
Just like to touch with Matt with where we're at, and maybe Cindy also, or Patty, where we're at with the payouts on the flood damage money, and how many of those are still in the flow here, coming through projects that are in, in our projects this year that may be paid for out of that, and where we're at with that money.
I can email you numbers. There's nothing I have off the top of my head. I think Patty covered some of it in her financial report, though, if I recall.
I covered what's been paid out, but I don't know what's been promised out of that, what's left. Is that what your question, Jeff?
Yeah, what's in the pipeline and where do we, are we starting to look down the road here, what's in the pipeline and where we're sitting financially?
Yeah, I can send something out to the board on where we're at. We haven't spent it all yet, but based on what I saw yesterday, I'm gonna guess we have more bridges and trails gone in some areas of the state. So I think we'll keep spending some of it for sure. Hopefully July is quiet this year, unlike last year, but there are projects still coming in associated with stuff from last year. I'm actually headed to Chester to look at some on Friday. That's quite a chunk of money right there to look at some of their stuff. And yeah, there's still stuff rolling in, but I'll send something out to the board so that everyone has a clear picture.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I know it won't be an exact penny, but it just a guideline to kind of keep an eye on the whole figure,
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jeff.
Now, if we did have more issues.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
If we did have more issues this July, I mean, that shouldn't come out of that same money before any other flood damage is paid from 2 years ago.
It just depends on when people put in for their projects. So if there's projects that are put in and that money is put aside for it already, I don't know why a new project would take precedence over a project that's already been being worked on.
I got to ask, am I the only one hearing owls?
No, I think it's doves, and I think it's Mike Burns in Texas.
Yes, the yard's full of doves. Sorry.
Okay, no, I thought it was an owl.
I thought it was an hour ago, and I realized it was doves. But yeah, I don't
shut
think...
them up. I'm sorry.
Is it morning dove season?
No, it's evening in Texas, Mark. Come on. Morning doves are already sleeping.
Yeah, but just Cindy, I just have one more thing. Cindy, on your report, I don't know if everybody read it or not, but I guess congratulations is in order for your IASA Administrator Leadership Excellence Award that was given to you at Congress. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I've gotten a few emails from a few directors. That shows me who's reading this report. But no.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, everybody. It was a very big surprise. It's the only award they give out once, annually. So
I'm just glad it was a surprise because I knew about it back in February.
yeah, I had no idea.
It was a surprise because I had to drop my bacon at breakfast to make sure there was a picture taken of the occasion.
Okay, committee reports. Mark.
AORG. Things are going well. We've re-upped our we did our taxes. As you heard earlier, we decided as the board to donate funding for PPE equipment for chainsaw safety in order to entice people to take the chainsaw class, and also to get safety equipment out to our membership. We feel that's an important thing, and it's something that we could do, promoting safe operation, safe work on trails across the board. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Mark. Northeast chapter and USA, both organizations met out in Green Bay. I have been reelected as Secretary Treasurer of the Northeast chapter. And the USA is going to sponsor an event or something for ISC next year, which is up in Prince Edward Isle. So they're looking forward to that. And they're trying to work on USA is trying to get their name out there, get a little more recognition, let people know who and what they are. The United Snowmobile Alliance, they are a organization similar to the Northeast chapter, just on a larger national scale. They are backed by Orba, Off-Road Business Association, and some of their members. So it's a sizable backing. They deal with more federal land issues, but still small enough to deal with local stuff as well. Pat and I both kind of pop in and out of those meetings, but it was good to put some faces to names out at Congress this year. And let's see, that's pretty much it. Snow Trail Conservancy.
We haven't had a meeting.
Okay. Law enforcement.
Haven't had a meeting.
Awards and nominating, Patty. That one I know
We
we've
have
had.
had a meeting. We've had a couple of meetings. Okay. So the committee met and we selected this year's award recipients. I have placed the order with Vermont Engraving. Some awards will be different only because of supply issues, so I went with the recommendation from the vendor. The blue club signs, those big ones that go on the trails. Mandy, I submitted the order to Mandy and she's confirmed that she's taking care of that already. The Trailblazer certificates are, I sent to Tina in the office, and the groomer jacket, I'm pending Matt getting me the size. Vast, we are volunteer strong. We actually made a sign to have a group photo taken at the annual meeting. Time and location at the annual meeting TBD, but Amber's also on the awards committee and obviously this year on the annual meeting committee. So she's aware that it has to be somewhat put somewhere in the agenda for that day. So I just encourage your folks, if you could, encourage your clubs and your members that delegates that actually go to participate in that group photo. I think it'd be nice. Beth can probably use it for some marketing things as well. And the signs came out really nice. And we hope that from a committee perspective, that this is something that, we do every year at the annual meeting, some type of group volunteer photo. I think I covered it. I know I got Ruth on here and I thought I saw Amber, but that could have been Ivor. And that's all I have, Jeff.
Thank you, Patty.
Amber's
Any
much
questions
better
for Patty?
working than Ivor.
Excuse me. Bylaws and policy, Mark.
Bylaws and nothing at this time.
Annual meeting. Any updates?
Amber's gonna email a schedule to Cindy to take a look at. And everything is going good. So
great.
On track.
Thank you.
Yep.
Executive committee did not meet. Personnel committee, Julianne.
Yeah, personnel committee met on June 19th and we completed Cindy's evaluation. Overall score was 93 out of 105. And we just did a quick summary and I'll send that out to everyone. And it includes the calculations of how we came up to that score based on the evaluations we received. So, and if anybody else on the committee has anything to add, Carol, Bruce, Mark.
I just want to thank you, Julianne, because in the past we haven't had great participation and sometimes it's been bumpy, and you've really worked hard to get down a process and try to get through all the mist and cut to the chase. And you
did a good job, I think.
With that. You did a good job.
Yeah, we all did.
I know, like last year, I didn't turn one in. Or the year before, I didn't turn one in. because I got busy and I just whatever. But you've made the process much better. So thank you.
Well, it's with all your help. And again, this is a process improvement. So if any of you folks, when this gets sent out, the summary gets out, if you have questions, concerns, or things you want us to see that's a little bit different, we can do that. Just let me know after you get it. You can just send me an email, and the committee's going to meet again, and just as a follow-up after action. So that would be good if you have any feedback. Thanks.
Can
Thank you, Julian.
can the committee just share how many directors actually submitted their
12.
reviews?
Well,
12. Thank you very much.
We had a very, we had a very good turnout this year, and I appreciate everybody's time and effort. In the past, we haven't had a lot of participation's been really challenging. And I know it's due to technology and other things, and life gets busy. Trust me, I know, but I really appreciate it. We had a really good turnout. 12 was a good turnout for the board, to be honest.
And I appreciate it, your participation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Cindy. Financial, Patty? I think we've
We covered
pretty much
that under
covered
new
that.
business. I think we beat that up pretty good.
Yep. Long-range planning, Mark.
So we put together a draft. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
A draft agenda for Saturday. These are usually really packed days. And there will, this isn't written in stone. It's not even written in paper yet. We're going to get there at 8:30, 9 to 10:30. I think, Cindy, you'd wanted that for some officer and director training. We haven't settled on exactly what that'll mean yet. This year's focus is going to be on resiliency. Sustainability is a buzzword that doesn't hold much meaning anymore, but resiliency actually isn't. And I was out at Congress. I talked to the executive director of the FCQM. Roger, you know the initials better than me, for Quebec, and they're focusing on some of the same things. In addition, but the other thing I didn't mention, they're getting rid of their free weekend. Their open house weekend is no longer for any of you who took advantage of that in Quebec. It's not going to happen this year. But they're also looking at resiliency. They're talking about moving trails system further north. Roger, I know you've been up there. What he mentioned to me is that some of the where people are talking about moving trail systems are people don't live. So what are the hurdles and stuff to overcome with that for them? But for us, and I said this to him, I said, we don't have latitude. We have some altitude, some elevation. So that's some of the things we're going to be focusing on is how can we address winters like this so that because in the midst of a really poor winter, there was some pretty good riding to be had. I know that if I hadn't been busy with work and could take more days off in the middle of the week, there was still decent riding to be had. So how do we expand those opportunities, whether it's with elevation, expanding parking areas, building new trails in areas that have more snow. So we'll be talking about that. We're talking about how do we incentivize people for joining early? How do we publicize the value of the TMA? And these are just outlines. So if people have other ideas in these categories, we'll ask you to bring those up. And again, resilience as an organization. We have some clubs that struggle. Roger mentioned clubs who aren't grooming and such. And so I imagine that'll all be part of that. But this is really just an outline and it'll be driven by the conversations at the meeting. And at the end of the day, we'll wrap up and have room for other business and other discussions that people may want to have. by that time you may all want to just say, oh, let's get the hell out of here. But it should be a full day. It's right on Main Street in Waterbury, the fire department. You can't miss it. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Julie?
I'm on another committee with somebody else who works in Waterbury, and parking might be a little bit of a challenge because there's an art show or something going on in Waterbury that day. So just be cognizant of that.
Well,
traffic might be a little thick. So,
if it comes down to it, we know there's a ton of parking at the state office complex.
right.
And we can run shuttles, you know, if people need, you know.
Yeah. And then there's the old Green Mountain parking too.
Right. So hopefully there's more than enough parking in Waterbury.
And we'll send out like an area map and where the parking spots are located too.
I noticed Roger raised his hand.
Yep, go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, normally we do a board meeting at this to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I don't see that in the agenda. What's the plan with that?
Well, normally it's usually scheduled for the Sunday afterwards when we have a weekend. And we don't have that. So I didn't want to put it on this. And in the past, we've covered a lot of ground and been able to squeeze it in. But I didn't want to put that here as a pressure, but we can certainly add that if it looks like we're going to have the time to do that. Because we'd have to warn it, wouldn't we, Cindy?
Yep.
Yes.
Let me toss that around and think about it, and we'll let people know, Roger. Any other questions?
Okay,
If I may, I was just wondering, looking this over, Mark, it looks good, and I like the resiliency thing. That's obviously going to be a big word for us, I think, in the future. Just wondering if there's any room. I mean, we have a whole lot of stuff, I think, still from the budget that needs to be discussed, and I do see the TMA and where the money goes, that kind of stuff, but just some more time maybe allotted for budget. That's my only concern.
Wrap up other business.
Okay, that'll fit. Just seems like a big part than just a wrap up, but whatever.
Well, don't forget /other business.
The other thing too, and like I mentioned before, you have quite a few weeks now between now and then to review the budget and ask questions. I'm happy to meet with anyone in person or in Zoom. Too.
Roger?
I think his hand is just still up.
I think his hand
before.
just stayed up.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry, I'll put it down.
No, that's fine if your arm doesn't get tired. Any other questions? Okay, like I said, I'll talk to Jeff and the executive board about whether we want to try to squeeze a meeting in on this as well. Like I said, I know in the past what's happened is we've done a lot of work and we didn't want to necessarily do it on Sunday like it was scheduled, but we do have to let people know ahead of time if it is going to be a monthly meeting. So, thanks.
And we may come out of that Saturday with some stuff that we want to decide, in 8 or 10 days later at an actual board meeting too. So, let's see. Resource committee was idle. Trails committee. Don't think they met recently. Is there a scheduled trails meeting anytime soon, Matt?
There is one scheduled for, I believe, August 12th.
Okay.
But
Thank
I
you.
don't think I'm going to be here, but I guess they can still have it without me. That's fine.
Yeah. Wouldn't bother you, I don't think, but we'll see. Governor's Council, Pat.
How about safety?
Did I skip safety again? I did skip
Yeah,
safety
he doesn't
again.
want to. He didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah, sorry, Stan.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't meet last month. We are reconvening in July on the 8th. And our focus is going to be on that review of the online safety program.
Sounds good. Okay, Pat. Now you're up.
Okay. Governor's Council is on summer vacation until September.
Well, that was easy. All right. Anything else that anyone would like to bring up to the board? Okay. We shall see you on July 13th. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Lamoille will make a motion to adjourn.
I will take a first from Lamoille and a second from Windsor. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all.